It's not the median value of the suburb. It's definitely not a random comparable sale, or not even comparable. It's not recent sales. There's so much detail you need to go to that. We might touch on some of those in just a second. A lot of people think valuing a property is just about finding the number, right? It's about finding a price to put on the offer. The reality is, from the way I see it, is you want to understand what is the market willing to pay for the property, which I think is a fundamental difference. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Smash Property Podcast. This week's episode, we're going to have a chat about property valuations, how to make sure you are actually paying the right price, not overpaying, some things you can do out there to make sure that you can get the right number for the property, get yourself a good deal and not miss out. Today's episode, welcomed, enjoyed. I need to start again.
No, you don't. It's fine. I'm here.
Kira's here, guys.
Finally.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
I feel like it's been...
Hi, I'm Nick. Nice to meet you.
It's been a couple of months.
It's been too long. This is the most requested thing I have on this podcast is bring back Akira. Nick, we're sick
No,
of...
it is.
I'm just kidding. They guys, they like me as well. And you.
I'm excited though to be back talking, chatting, having proper conversations.
This one should be sick. It can get very complicated. We're going to keep this simple, right? We're going to keep it valuable. So whether you're DIYing, you can understand that you're not going to get yourself, a shit deal. You're also not going to miss out as well, because I know a ton of people do miss out because they try and lowball and get, nowhere, right? So we're going to talk through that in a second. Before we do that, though, tell the viewers, because we've had, a lot of new people subscribe since you probably last joined us on a podcast. Tell us what you've been doing. Like, what's happening? Who are you?
What am I doing? So obviously with the business, working on the planning calls, which has been really, really beautiful. Obviously connecting with a lot of our clients, importantly, during their journey with their property goals and what they're trying to do. So it's been very interesting to get to connect with a whole range of different people. Obviously, this part of the year, a lot of people are kind of trying to tick off that goal to get into the property market. So there is obviously urgency with a lot of people wanting to get the ball rolling this side of Christmas, which is awesome. But I think outside of that, just working with the team to find some amazing deals. Dan, our BA, is just on fire at the moment. I think, of course, just opening up the markets as well in the Victoria region has, been very fruitful, I would say,
it
for
has.
our investors.
No, I agree. I do like, all of the deals, obviously, that we're buying at the moment. A lot of the clients have been absolutely amazing to work with.
Yeah, honestly, the like-mindedness with our clients in terms of, making property a lifestyle and doing it in a sustainable manner has been so special.
Yeah, we definitely have, carved out a bit of a niche in, the market. Obviously, there's so many different ways to invest in property. We've obviously, we do what we've done ourselves, and it seems to be working very well for clients out there as well. So shout out to all of the clients that watch this. You guys are absolutely amazing. I know you guys would already know Akira from that, but also some of your subscribers might not. If you get some value out of the video, appreciate a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you want to see more property content just like this, or if you just want to see more of Akira, continue to subscribe. Let's get into this one. So a lot of people think valuing a property is just about finding the number, right? It's about finding a price to put on the offer. The reality is, from the way I see it, is you want to understand what is the market willing to pay for the property, which I think is a fundamental difference. And you rightfully called out before we started shooting that we're talking today about market valuation, not bank valuation, because they are two very different things, right? What are people willing to pay versus what are the banks willing to lend you? It's two different conversations. We're obviously not bank valuers, right? We're property investors and buyers agents. So we're looking at it from what the market is willing to pay with the conversation we're sort of going to go through. I think let's clear up what property valuation isn't from that point of view.
That lens,
It's not asking price typically, right? And it can either be, it's not asking price in the sense of it's going to be a lot lower or sometimes a lot higher, depending on the market, right? It's not the median value of the suburb, right? It's definitely not a random comparable sale, or not even comparable. It's not recent sales, right?
Yeah.
Because there's so much detail you need to go to that. We might touch on some of those in just a second. In my opinion, a valuation is a range. It's between this number and that number. That's where it would sort of land. And I think if you can sort of look at it from that lens, you would likely have a better chance of landing on a number, for example, putting down an offer, rather than trying to find the exact, to the nearest digit what valuation you're going to put on, right? It's really important to get that right.
I agree completely. And I think the reason why this particular topic arose is because we do have clients that we work with trying to navigate and clarify what the actual value is and why, the offer that we place makes sense in their situation. So it is also part of education during the property investing journey to understand how to, unravel what the ideal amount is that you place on the offer.
Yeah,
because
so
it's layers.
It is layers. So I think what we got to understand is there's a couple of things. So the valuation is what you would think something is worth, and I think the strategy is what we're willing to pay.
Exactly.
So we look at it from that point of view.
And I'm just going to point out here, obviously due to inflation and due to the amount of people in certain markets, that value in terms of that point in time, understanding what it actually is relative to, maybe 4 years ago, 3 years ago is an important part as well.
Yeah. And I've got a couple of points here I want to talk about in just a second on that valuation might have to slide even during you putting an offer down because of how quickly the market moves, which is, I think, the point you were just making. So we'll touch on that in a second. The framework that we're going to go through is a framework that you can use regardless of market conditions, regardless of location. It is a repeatable process that you can use in any time, anywhere. So regardless of whatever time you're watching this video back, whether it's 20 years from now or wherever.
Oh, wow. Imagine that.
Yeah, I just kind of freaked out for a second. I'm like, people are going to see me 20 years from now. Damn. Remember that video I saw of myself 4 years ago?
Yeah,
I was like, dude, I looked fucking sexy back then.
Young gun.
I looked jacked, man. I was huge. Now I'm just ordinary.
You're not.
Nah, I'm still pretty fucking handsome. Nah, so let's get into it. We're the doggy almost knocked the camera down. That's all right.
That's okay.
So so let's talk about what drives value in markets. And I think before we look at numbers, we've got to look at what the market actually wants and what the market is going to reward, right? Because there's going to be some markets that you're looking into where, land size might be a big consideration, right? And I'll give you an example. Land size in Queensland does matter because a lot of people have caravans, they have toys, they want space for a shed, that they value that a lot.
Yes.
Whereas some other particular markets, maybe in some capital city locations, they might value convenience. They might value proximity to public transport.
Yeah.
So you have to apply that on the market that you are looking in and have an understanding of what that really looks like.
Yeah. Obviously, capital city versus regional, that also plays a part in that part of the equation.
Some parts of Sydney really value older properties that have been, gutted
Redone.
and renoed completely inside, right? They might not need a big block of land. They might just need it to look a certain way. So,
I mean, you think about it though, in Sydney, you have these tiny little townhouses, triple the value of some of the Western Sydney properties. So it's just about location and understanding relative to the area what the value
you've
makes
got to
sense
understand, and this is where you've got to do a bit of legwork here to really understand what is driving the value in the market that you're looking in, and it is going to vary state by state. It's going to vary city to city. It's going to vary regional town to regional town. So just knowing what the demographic is in the area, what they really appreciate. It shouldn't take too long. You should be able to look online and sort of see, okay, these types of properties are selling for these types of prices. For example, maybe they're recently renovated and that's the big thing in the area. Maybe properties that might look a bit shit but have a massive block of land are selling for a premium. You've got to be able to weigh that up.
I guess maybe a usable quick tip on understanding this is even just jumping on realestate.com, filtering to sold and then into the 3-month kind of date. I know this is probably common knowledge for most people, but it is obviously a big part of the equation just to understand how prices can vary in regards to proximity.
Don't underestimate common knowledge. It is often not so common. So no, I think there's some definite value in that. So if if you don't understand that before you try to put a price on a property, you've got your valuation wrong already, right? Because you're
What's
not
it based on?
you're not really understanding the market. So it's really key. That's probably step one before you go into anything else, is just understand what that really looks like. One thing that we do, and a lot of people do, is look at recent sales. So this is where a lot of people get this wrong, right?
Yes.
So talk to us a little bit about defining real comparable sales, a little bit about what we do and where people can also go wrong and what to pay attention to.
This comes up quite often in our space when we're working as a team to clarify what our offer price is. But in terms of defining comparable sales, now, again, no two properties are the same. There's always going to be a slight variance. Now, you can take things like land size into consideration, the condition, the configuration, zoning, overlays. Does it have bushfire overlays? Does it have flood zone overlays? Things like understanding the actual street. Sometimes there's a lot of housing commission. There are so many parts in that equation to ensure that you are correctly putting two properties side by side to understand what the value is as well. Importantly, a big one that comes up as well is when, as I mentioned, you look at recent sales maybe 3 months ago. A big part of the reflection within a market, especially in a growing market, is that prices move. So often you'll see a property that sold 2 months ago, but really that contract was in progress maybe 3 or 4 months prior. So it's also having consideration that time does have an effect on what the comparable sale value will be at the point in time that you're putting in your...
And it's so true. I mean,
sense.
no, it does. And we see this a lot where, people would just blindly look at what's sold in the last sort of 3 to 6 months ago. Oh, look, it's sold $50K cheaper. And it's like, yeah, because the market's moved, by that much and more in that time. So you've got to, don't just look at the price. All the things that you mentioned are key to really, we haven't even got to a number with our property that we're looking at yet, right?
Yeah.
We've understood the market, right? We've looked at comparable sales to give us an indication of where the market was and where it is now, based on the inputs that we're looking at, the land size, the configuration, the condition of the property, all those sorts of things.
And importantly, again, like these are just some of the items. There's a whole 50-point due diligence checklist that we go through. Is it on a main road? What are parks like nearby? There are so many things to consider when you're putting two properties together. But I think just one more to call out is that style of the asset or the property. Is it weatherboard? Is it brick? Is it double story? Has it been renoed as well? Because those are also parts of the equation where value will differ between two properties.
Yeah, the DD we will get to in just a second. So we're going through it step by step, right? So step one is understanding the market. You're jumping ahead. Step two is defining real comparables.
Yes.
In the area. And comparables doesn't mean to say it's got to be next door or it's next week. It's just what's sold recently. Comparable in like for like nature is what you want to be looking at, just to get and we're at step two now, where we can now start to just understand more about the market, the area, how quickly things are moving, what type of, what people value in the area.
100%.
All right. Now we sort of go into identifying a price band for the property. So this is step 3. And this is where markets don't price properties one by one, right? They price them in bands. And it's going to be needing to understand the suburb and what is happening in that particular suburb, the ranges of property sales in the suburb that you're looking at, but also a range of what's actually on market at the moment and what they're sort of asking for as well.
Correct.
So you can sort of go, okay, this is what has sold, and these are, for the most part, you're going to get the sold price. In some areas you won't, but you got what's sold and what are they asking for now, and you can sort of see, you can start to piece together a bit of a price band for what you would what the market is going to expect for the property. And that's sort of I lost my train of thought there.
No, I think what you like from my perspective in the process in which we go through is understanding that range of the band that you're talking about, because importantly, again, it allows you then to work with the agent in terms of placing the offer. So I think an important aspect is knowing your range. So after, doing the research in terms of knowing the market or that specific suburb, LGA as well, then narrowing into the styles of property that match from the comparisons to determine, that range of pricing. And again, things will come into place with understanding the heat of the market as well. But I know we're going to get to that.
We will get to that. So identifying is probably where my head was at in that last piece, was just identifying a price band.
Yeah.
Now, this doesn't have to specifically put a number on the property you're looking at just yet, because we'll uncover a couple of things. But at least okay, this is sort of between sort of 480 and maybe 550, something like that. Probably a good sort of range. And this is kind of where we're sort of narrowing down to eventually land on a particular number, because the next step after you've identified the price band is looking at the condition of the property and the movement in the market, which is really critical. So this is where I see a lot of people, you can get emotional with this part of the process, because you're looking at the condition of the property and you're sort of looking at it, particularly new investors, from a lens of, oh, I'm going to live in it. I'm
going to have to do all this work straight away.
And this is where you've got to kind of pull yourself back and look at things logically and rationally. So this is where you're looking at a property. Is the property in original condition, or has it been renovated? And if it has been renovated, what are other properties that have been renovated typically selling for? And if it's original, what are original properties typically selling for in the area?
I think that's a big point. And now, again, we always kind of advocate to go, if you have, the capital, go for the original style properties and add that cosmetic value. And we often do that in the process of distinguishing comparable sales that have been renovated for our investors. So they know, maybe I spend $15K and then we have that uplift in terms of the difference in price.
Yeah, exactly right. And there's properties that might have granny flat potential. There's properties that might have pools, which we never really encourage for investors to really look into. Other properties might have had, additional extensions at periods of point in time. All of those sorts of things you've got to kind of weigh up and look at and find like-for-like properties when you're going down that particular path, because a property with a pool, a lot of investors are not really going to value that, because it's just an additional cost that's going to creep into your cash flow. Whereas a property that has the space for a granny flat, a lot of investors are going to be like, hey, that's really something I want to be looking at. Even properties that already have granny flats are going to attract, like moths to a flame, a lot of investors, because it's already done.
Yeah.
So all of these things are going to affect value in different ways. And this is why understanding the condition, the improvements, understanding the return on investment that you're looking at is critical.
And this is where, I guess, from our experience as investors, not just buyers agents, you really see, how do I say this very simply? But if you go original state versus something that's shiny and pretty, often what we pick up is the shiny and pretty attract a lot of the owner arcs and people who are just wanting to pay a premium because everything's done. Whereas you have a lot more leverage on original conditions where there's room to uplift. So much. That is...
This is... that alone, I know we... when we talk with clients that we onboard, it's one of my big... Like, if I could... shake investors and tell them one thing, it's like, don't buy the fucking brand new shiny thing, because it's so ingrained in our society. Like, newer is better, right? The newer car, the new handbag, the new clothes. Like, I get it, but with property, you've got to understand where the value lies, and it's not always in a brand new property. I feel like just there's some people are just like,
but I think can we maybe just talk? I know it's off topic, but just talking to that a little bit is important, because you see the quality of builds from the 60s, 70s. They are so solid in comparison to these new flipping, they built in 8-9 months, some of these new houses with super cheap material, not really constructed with any kind of love and stuff like that. So it's not always new is better.
No, and I mean, we're the doggy's knocking the camera again. Yeah, he's a big stretcher. And we're not saying that from the perspective of, well, actually, maybe I should say it. We're saying that from the perspective of lived in brand new
Yes.
also lived in, a few decades old, right? Or many decades old.
Yeah.
There is a clear distinction in build quality that you mentioned, and to be fair, from a property investment point of view, there is a clear distinction with the brand new property in the brand new area not growing that quickly, because I actually own one in Sydney that's been stagnant for a very long time now, versus an older property that is weatherboard that a lot of investors would be like, that's fucking shit.
Yeah.
That has tripled, doubled in value, maybe not tripled, but definitely doubled in value in a few short years.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what would you rather at the end of the day?
And this comes back down to location in terms of determining value, because, again, if you're buying in these greenfield kind of areas where there's tons and tons of mushroom properties just popping up, often the value is good for a certain period of time, and then sometimes it'll come back because there's an oversupply.
Yep.
So I think even just being aware when you are determining your value in your property in terms of what additional development is occurring in that pocket.
100%. You can tell, folks, it's a sore point for us. We deal with this quite a lot with investors that say they want a certain thing and then they don't want the older property. Anyhow, the next step is the due diligence, which we are industry leaders in, I've got to say. And it's a part of the process where it's not just looking at flood zones or bushfire zones. It is a very intricate detail that we go through. But in terms of you guys doing it yourself, watching at home, this is where valuation stops being theoretical, and you're now, like I said, we're sort of narrowing that window down to really understand what the value of the property we are looking at. So the layout of the property, the quality of the street, all right? Is it an owner-occupied dominated street, or is there a lot of tenants in there? Is there housing commission nearby? Is it on a corner block? Typically, in some locations, corner blocks are a bit more of a premium, but in some other locations, it's actually a downside to have a corner block. So understanding what they are.
What's the reason for the sale?
Has it got a new roof recently done to it? Has it had any, major renovations or items that have flagged? Does it have side access so you can do the granny flat thing? Does it have any easements on the property? Is it opposite a park or a school or a, like you said, a main road? Does it have massive power lines going behind it? All these sort of things. Is
so much.
So much you can look at. And I don't mean to make it sound like, this big thing you can definitely get some good DD done if you're doing it yourself.
100%.
And a lot of it you can do online, like Google Maps, like insanely powerful to quickly understand, is it a property that you want to spend more time looking into just by understanding the street view and the location and the proximity to certain things, which is absolutely critical.
It's critical. Yeah, absolutely critical, because, with the process that we use to evaluate properties, again, working on that baseline, but once we get into the DD, we've obviously spent time on it already, spoken to the agent, make sure it's still available, gone through like the first load of questions. But once you run into this checklist and want to make sure that it is 100%, nothing's 100%, but as feasible as possible to put forward for our investors, we get 50 to 80% of those property just getting knocked up because there's something not checking out. Yeah. So there's thousands of properties on realestate.com. The goal is to really narrow in. The
goal is
so that
it's a game of elimination, and then probably further to that, which is the next point, but it's sort of blended, is the finance numbers check, right?
Yeah.
Because by no means does rent validate property, but by no means does rent dictate the price of a property, but it definitely validates where it might sit. So you might have a really low yield that might sort of go, hey, this property doesn't really suit me. Yeah, right. It might be in a high growth area, but if I can't stomach the yield and the cash flow, then this is a no. It doesn't make sense. Right? On the flip side, you might have really high cash flow, and typically properties with really high cash flow, if they are
in good growth locations.
In good growth locations, typically for me is almost a bit of a red flag sometimes, because it's like, why is the yield so good on this property? What are we sort of missing? Yeah. Typically, high yield properties might sort of flag that there are some issues. It might be an older property, right? You're buying it really cheap, therefore you got a really high yield. It's not always the case, obviously, but something to help you kind of validate the price of the thing.
I think the rent cross-check is a big thing for us in the valuation process to determine what number actually makes sense for the holding costs. And I think also importantly in this phase, I would also tip like our investors who are DIYing, clarify the actual rental agreements in place, because that is also a big part. I know we've recently got a deal for a client where, you know, it's a super low rent for a long period of time, I think another 8 to 9 months or something like that. So making sure that shortfall is accounted for in your offer, if that makes sense. Because again, I think importantly, that is something where 90% of investors will walk away because it doesn't make sense for them. So it gives you a bit of leverage, but you need to account for it.
Yeah, 100%. This next one I love is the agent behavior and market temperature. All right, I love this one. It's so overlooked, underestimated, but you can get so much value out of just speaking to the agent, and even from the sense of them not even telling you things, but you just picking up on behavioral things that come out of the agent, right? Are they really defensive? Are they pushy, right? Are they not getting back to you, right? Which is a lot of the issues that a lot of people might see is the agent, hey, this agent, do they want to sell this thing? They're just not even, I'm not even getting any response from the property, which, you know, can indicate a really hot market. They don't really need to push or chase, to sell the property. Are they, you know, is there any urgency with them trying to get the deal done? Like all of these things you can really assess as to the heat of the market, the state of the property, the condition of the property, and ultimately the value as well. But also understanding how hot the market is, which I always say just very like, I don't know, flippantly, whatever the word is, but like if you are having to chase the agent, you can it's a very good indication that market you're looking into is extremely hot. Now, it doesn't mean to say don't buy there, but just be very cautious about that type of market that you're entering into. On the flip side, if your agent is maybe chasing you and the other way around, the shoe's on the other foot, probably a market that might be a little bit cooler. Doesn't mean to say, again, don't buy there, but it just means to say, hey, you might have a bit more chance of negotiating, leverage, picking up a deal maybe well below asking price. All these things are great buyers markets as opposed to sellers markets. So a ton of info you can get from the sales agent. And I highly recommend picking up the phones and speaking to people.
That's right. So, I think also maybe just to touch on a big one when you're speaking to the agent is understanding the reason for sale. Now, I guess that gives you context in terms of understanding, is it time that's going to be the pusher to get the deal done? Is it, you know, the number itself? But I think one that's recently come up in conversations is sometimes you will have sellers who are unrealistic about the price because they've done work to a property. I know there was a property that we were looking at where it was priced maybe a year and a half ago way above, realistic expectations for value, and it just sat on market. So making sure that even when you're speaking to the agent, hey, why do they actually think it's worth this much in terms of your range? Getting the like a cheeky way to get a bit of a download from the agent directly.
Yeah, I like asking. So what's your feedback around price expectation? Because some markets they just can't legally tell you. Other markets they can.
Oh well, you can still get a range. They don't have to tell you the number.
I know you definitely can get a range, but some agents like to play it by the book, which is fine. But then also to that, kind of what we're touching on earlier is, if you're buying into a hot market, right, you need to understand that prices or values can typically move a lot faster than the data you're looking at, right? So you might be pulling data from wherever it is, DSR, CoreLogic, hotspotting, whatever, and you might be going, cool, well, I've got, my things is my valuation is based on data, right? Which is all cool and fine, but it doesn't really mean anything when the market is moving so quickly, and we're seeing that. And I did a couple of podcasts on this. In in the matter of weeks and a few short months, markets can just quickly flip from being, very stable and stagnant to absolutely blowing up off the charts. And if you're just going off data, this is where the data-driven decisions are in many ways can let you down.
Yeah. I think this data one is a big one to pull up on and chat about because it throws people off so massively in their journey. Because even when you're looking at an online valuation before placing an offer, that can move when a property is on sale. And we typically see them move quite, especially on totality kind of data.
Yeah.
But also using multiple sources for validating price as well. Because again, a lot of the banks do use these kind of data sources for valuations, but it doesn't actually mean that is the true value because again, it could be low, medium or high value as well. So it's
high confidence, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry.
And then the other component too, and this is probably slightly off topic, a little bit of a nugget for you guys doing it yourself at home. A lot of people I know like to look at the annual capital growth rate, right, of a particular area to tell them how good the area is. Let me tell you, there's so many issues with this. Firstly, where's the data actually coming from? It's mostly coming from Cotality, to be honest. Even if you're getting it from another aggregator, it's likely coming from Cotality. Secondly, that number or that percentage, I should say, is only really at the median level, right? It's the middle number. That doesn't tell you really about the
3 beds,
the entire suburb. So what I would encourage you to do is work out the compounding annual growth rate of the exact property you are looking at.
Yeah.
Right? Go back and see what it's sold for in the last, since it's been built, right? That will tell you how that property is, the one you want to actually buy, has grown over time. So much more valuable than just the area's annual growth rate. Typically, it's only in the last 10 years anyway. It doesn't really give you a good view.
Interesting. I always bring this up when we're doing our location DD and understanding the data there. Like, we were looking at areas like Bundaberg maybe 4 years ago now, and that was like on 3-4%. And look at it now, it's like on 8-9%. So it's there's detail in it where maybe off topic, but importantly, it's always important not to just take one point of data as the true metric.
Yeah. So by now we should be really starting to set the range of the valuation for the property that we're looking at and get very high confidence with that range. And, typically the range might spread, over a 50 grand sort of spread across a valuation range, but you should be pretty high confident at this point in time to know, hey, it's between 5 and 550 or whatever it might be. And I think, get comfortable with that. The purchasing of that property.
Yeah.
You might not have a specific number to really put down, but if you've got a range and you're reasonably confident with that range, you should be pretty, in my opinion, okay to put forward an offer.
Yeah, 100%. Maybe we'll do a little kind of actual deep dive. Maybe you can show on screen and share how you evaluate a property in real life. I think that would be more useful so that people kind of start to understand.
Might charge for that, guys. That's some hectic value you're asking me to drop.
But it's good. It's important because it's one thing to obviously talk to it, but actually doing it in real life is a different thing as well, because not only do you have all this information, you also have all your emotions to contend with in the decision too, of not missing out and getting all freaked out that it's going to get swooped up before you. So I think it would be valuable to see that.
Absolutely. I think, maybe you can look into that in the new year. I did want to do more sort of educational stuff in the new year. So we might look into that. If you got some value out of the episode, appreciate a thumbs up. Consider subscribing. So now how do we turn this into an offer, right? We've gone through this whole process of really just basically landing on a valuation range from all the things that we've sort of spoken about. How do we then convert that into like, okay, I've got my range. Now I'm going to narrow this down into.
I thought that's what we spoke. Okay, I think.
But we talked about what? Where were you for the last 20 minutes? We spoke about how to get the valuation, right? Which is a range. How do we then turn that into an offer? Is the question.
Well, I guess again, there's a few things. This is where placement of running your calculations is so important to understand the rent and how the numbers actually perform. Number one. Number two, I would say clarity in those comparable sales, like knowing based on renovated properties, similar configurations, non-renovated properties, land size, are there maybe 2 or 3 properties that you can look at from that whole lot of bundle that you kind of searched for to give you a bit of a closer range from that 50, maybe make it 20K difference in terms of range. I think number 3 is speaking to the agent. That's the key. Clarifying reason for sale, clarifying, how the actual property terms will look for the negotiations, because number is not always the main contending thing to get the deal done. I think importantly from there, clarifying from your perspective, what is the number absolute maximum that you are comfortable with? Because I think some people go into this thinking, I'm going to negotiate a ton during building and pests, it's fine. But I think always placing your offer in true value of what you're actually comfortable with, because that building and pest phase should always just be a cherry 100%. On top important.
Exactly. That's sort of what I was looking for. It's what are you comfortable paying for the property? And all those things you just mentioned, the numbers, what do the numbers look like based on the offer that you're going to put down? What's the cash flow look like after that, right? I think really important to get right.
So, and what I mean by that is actually running the numbers. So taking into account your loan repayments, taking into account all the expenses to know the net position on a yearly, quarterly, yearly, quarterly, and weekly basis on an average, because I think that gives you comfort of making sure that you can actually hold the property, importantly. And also, sometimes you might pay a little couple of thousand extra to get into the market, and that's okay too, especially if it's in a moving market as well. So just being realistic, if you're really wanting to do it, get in, sometimes there's a little bit of a price to pay just to move the deal forward. And also balancing your relationship with the agent, importantly, at that point to get it done.
Yeah, exactly right. I think lots of value in that. If you got to this point of the episode and you're like, this just seems too bloody hard. Well, that's what we do, right? If you want to just, you want us to take that off your plate and basically get all of the valuation done for you, plus all the due diligence, finding the right market, handling the agent, negotiating, all the stuff that goes into finding and buying an investment property. That's what we do. If you're on YouTube, there is a link in the description below where you can book a call with a team. We can tell you how our process looks and how we can potentially help you. Importantly, if we can't help you, we'll also say that as well. We won't drag you on for no reason. But that's all we have time for today's episode. Thanks to Akira for joining us once again. I think this is an episode that may come out the very final episode of the year. So if it is, Happy New Year. I hope you have a great 2026. And thank you to all the support that you have shown us over the course of the 2025 year. That's all we have time for. I'm Nick V. This is Akira. Thanks for watching. Till next time. Catch you soon.
Thank you.